She's a writer, blogger, multiple mayhem mama, and she's, gosh darn good person too. Samantha Kemp Jackson is here. Hello.
Hello.
How many kids have you got now?
4.
800? Okay, 4.
5,004.
Still the 4.
Yes.
But it feels like a lot more sometimes, I bet.
It does. It's hard. Parenting is hard.
Yeah. Yeah, there's that.
Yes.
And I've only got one. I don't know how you do it. So on your website, you're coming up with tips all the time to help parents who have and let's also mention within those 4 is a set of twins.
Yes.
Which is
the youngest ones, identical twins, and they're 6. So
Yeah.
I'm busy all the time. My hands are full.
Totally. So people can relate to what you're going through, and you share your life with them, and people really appreciate it. And you give really good tips too. So today, it's that moment when the woman says, "I'm ready to go back to work."
Yes.
Or I have to go back to work, one of the two.
Yeah.
And I'm got mixed feelings about it, and I just don't know how to get my ducks in a row, and can you help me?
Yes, and you know, that ready to go back to work and that have to go back to work, I have to say that a lot of times we have to go back to work. I did, and so many other moms do, and it's that feeling of guilt. So my first tip is to eliminate that feeling of guilt, because you're doing it for your family, and oftentimes you're doing it for yourself, because sometimes you need something just for yourself, not just for your kids.
And that's okay.
It's
okay
okay
to want to get back a little bit of what your life was like before the kids, right?
Absolutely, absolutely. And I think as moms, we often internalize and take on the weight of the world and make ourselves the brunt of all of the feelings that everybody else has, so we should feel guilty.
Our kids actually survive.
They survive and they often thrive, because when mom's happy, everybody's happy. So I think it's a good thing for moms.
Where should we start with your tips? You've got 8 of them, right?
Mm-hmm. So eliminate the guilt. Another one
right.
is just to make sure that you have everything in place at home. So make sure that you have supports at home, Val. It's so important that when we go back to work as moms, we worry about, oh, is the laundry done? Is the cleaning done? What am I going to make for dinner? Make sure that you take on any help that is offered to you, and that you just, let things go if you have to.
So if hubby says, okay, well, I can make at least 1 dinner a week. If it's beans and hot dogs, you say, yes, please, thank you.
Beans and hot dogs are completely fine. No child has ever died because they had beans and hot dogs. It doesn't have to be a gourmet meal every night. It's okay to order pizza. Hey, I order pizza all the time when I'm tired or my husband can't get to it, and that's fine. The kids are okay.
So accept the help and don't criticize the people who are helping you.
Try to keep your mouth shut, even if against your better judgment.
All right, what's next?
Another thing is making sure that if you're going to be breastfeeding, or if you're still breastfeeding your child, in Canada here we have a year of maternity leave. If you've gone back before, or if you're just going back after a year, you have to make sure that you've made plans for feeding your child. So if you're going to continue breastfeeding, that's going to take a little bit more planning, because you're either going to have to pump, or you're going to have a place at work to, extract your milk, or you can have formula, bottle feed.
But if you're switching to formula, rather than making it such a drastic switch for the kid, you should start that earlier, right?
Yes, so if you know the date that you're going back to work, I would suggest that you do it a few months before. You start getting your child used to bottle and breast, and then slowly weaning them off.
Mm-hmm. And let other people do the feeding so that they get used to that too?
Yes, let other people do the feeding, and also giving yourself a break, because breastfeeding is actually quite challenging and quite physically exhausting. So
I can imagine.
Give yourself a break.
I
Yes.
didn't have to do that because my daughter's adopted, but I can see how, well, your body burns so much more calories.
It does, it does.
And I like the idea of checking first with work to make sure there's a place where you can go and pump if you have to.
If you have to, and I believe that that's actually the law. There has to be some place where you can go and make that provision for yourself and your child.
And a fridge.
Yes.
To put it in afterwards.
Absolutely.
All right, you've got the help. You've decided not to feel guilty about it. Okay, I know how I'm going to handle the breastfeeding thing. Then what?
Well, this is something that you might have wanted to look into before you've gone back to work, and it's daycare or childcare or babysitting. If you're especially in a large urban area, it's a real challenge. Daycare rates are very high, but also finding a provider that you're comfortable with, that your child is comfortable with, and that you can afford is a challenge. So start looking into that as soon as you know that you're going back to work. Mm-hmm. Some people put themselves on a daycare list when they're pregnant. I actually did that, and it's it's a sad state of daycare, but that's another story altogether.
Well, good for you for even thinking that far ahead.
Yeah, well, I mean, this is the way that it is here.
What happens if your spot comes up before you're ready to use it?
Well, oftentimes I've heard of parents who have actually put their child in earlier just to keep the spot, and they've had to scramble to get back to work and get everything else into place.
Wow.
Yes.
Kind of going about
Yes.
it backwards.
Kind of, yeah. So make sure that daycare and childcare is organized. If it's not daycare, if it's a private babysitter, get your child acclimatized to the babysitter. Have them come over maybe once or twice a week, even just to play with the child so that your baby is used to the person, so that when you go back, you're okay,
Yeah,
and they're okay.
It makes such a difference.
Makes a huge
Some
difference.
people are lucky enough to have grandma and grandpa.
Grandma and grandpa are great, but oftentimes we can't all do that. So.
That's right. Okay, what else?
Well, have an ally, and the ally should be at work. So when you're going back to work, especially those first couple of months, you feel kind of stressed. I know that I did, and I know a lot of moms do, and you're worried. You're thinking, oh, what's my child doing right now? Are they eating? Are they sleeping? Do they eat their...
Do they miss me?
Do they miss me? Do they know who I am? So have an ally at work that you can say, you know, I'm having a bit of a day. I'm missing my child, and I really just need to take a walk or call my babysitter or call the daycare. Oftentimes that ally at work can be the person next to you in a cubicle, or it could be your boss. You know, they can be quite understanding as well. They understand that you're going through a transition and your family is. So make sure that you have that person who can listen to you and also give you the flexibility, if it's possible, if you have to leave and your child is sick or something's happened.
Right. Yeah, and not feel like they're giving you the evil eye every single time you do.
Absolutely, because it's a lot of pressure and it's a lot of stress for a mom going back to work.
For sure. Some daycares
Yeah.
have those cameras there now that you can kind of
Yes.
sneak a peek.
It's great. When I went back for my daughter, this was 10 years ago, they had the camera. So I would click on it and watch her in her high chair at daycare. And there was a bit of melancholy, but I also felt very comforted knowing that she was okay and I could physically see her.
Right on.
Yeah.
Well, what if we have these huge expectations about how we expect it all to go, but it doesn't quite meet our expectations?
Well, it never does. And what is that expression, Val, that they say about the best laid plans of mice and women and moms? It never goes exactly as you planned, but that's okay. We have large expectations and we need to let them all go and just accept that sometimes things are not going to be exactly as we planned them. So the dinners aren't going to be exactly what you planned. The house might be a little bit messier than you.
That's a tough one. You got to let the
Yeah,
house go, right?
The house goes, and especially when you have little kids and you're tired and you're working full time and your spouse might be working full time, you don't have that time to clean all the time. And perhaps you can get help cleaning, or perhaps you can just let it go, and you know what? People will survive. It's
And
okay.
stop apologizing every time somebody walks into your house. Oh, I'm sorry that the house looks like this, blah, 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 right?
They
Stop
understand.
apologizing.
Stop apologizing. They understand. You've got little children, you've got a baby, you might have other kids. It's hard to do everything. It's hard to cook dinner, go grocery shopping, do laundry, and have your house spotlessly clean. And I always say, if the house is spotlessly clean and there's a baby in that house, something might be amiss.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Something creepy about that.
I don't know.
Mess is good,
know.
makes you real.
Yes.
You've already had that big transition when baby arrives. That was a huge mountain. Now you're transitioning to go back to work. It's another huge mountain.
Yes.
When does life kind of feel like normal again?
You know, I think normal is normal for everybody and it's different for everybody, but I'd say after a few months, and I think those first 3 months perhaps, you should give yourself a break and not give yourself too much pressure. Don't put really high expectations on yourself. Get out the door, get your child ready with their daycare, and let things go.
Do your best.
Do your
Just
best. That's all you can do.
She has great tips on so many great things, so check out her blog. You can go to multiplemayhemmama.com. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Val.